This remarkable scroll was created in France or the Rhineland in the 14th century. It contains a copy of the Genealogical History of Christ, written by Peter of Poitiers, who was the Chancellor of the University of Paris from 1193 to 1205. The Genealogy is Poitiers' most famous work, and was intended to provide clerics and students with a brief summary of biblical history in the form of a genealogical tree showing Christ's ancestry. Poitiers' text was largely written in response to the charitable decrees of the Third and Fourth Lateran Councils, who found that the biblical education of clerics and students to be lacking. This particular scroll is uniquely long, made of 8 vellum sheets glued together and measuring 418 centimeters. It was likely hung on a wall or unfurled on a table and used by teachers as an instructional aid. Its didactic function can be seen in the clarity of its organization and its use of color. The text is written vertically from top to bottom, in neat Gothic script, and begins in the top left with a prologue on the candelabrum. This is followed by Poitiers' prologue, and a note on how to use the scroll in the top right. The diagram itself, a stemma or family tree, begins at the base of the candelabrum and is made up of colorful lines and roundels extending through the center of the chronology. The diagram presents Christ's ancestry along the central line, organized into 6 historical periods that correspond to the 6 ages of the world. The 6 ages are demarcated along the central line in elaborate red and blue roundels with names inscribed, beginning with Adam and Eve and ending with Christ. Branching off from these roundels are generations of descendants. Their relationships to each other are written in red, uxor for wife, fili for children, for example. The bottom of the scroll is particularly interesting. Here, the 6th age is heralded by Christ's birth. The different stages of his life are then delineated in separate ornate roundels: his birth, life, death, and resurrection. His resurrection is surrounded by the names of the 12 disciples. There is a pronounced separation between his death and resurrection, which is quite interesting, as it seems only one other roll copy of the genealogy, now in the Library of Philadelphia, has such a distinct gap between his death and resurrection. Running parallel to the central line are other lineages, representing those who influenced biblical history, such as Alexander the Great and his successors down to Cleopatra, as well as Roman emperors. These additional lineages are synchronized chronologically with the central line. For example, next to the roundel noting Christ's birth is the list of Roman emperors, beginning with Julius Caesar. These additional histories provide further context to Christ's life and ancestry, grounding it in timescales that would have been useful in a classroom. Further detail is provided by illustrations and additional diagrams. Here, we see an ornate rendition of the Tower of Babel, with exaggerated Gothic features. The tower is clearly labeled Turris Babel. Nearby is a double diagram of Noah's Ark, one according to Bede and Strabus, and the other according to Augustine. There is also an architectonic diagram numbering the 42 stopping points of the Israelites, and a quatreforal diagram of the tribes of Israel and Levites arranged around the tabernacle according to the 4 cardinal points. As a whole, the scroll is incredibly rare and fascinating. The graphic boldness of its visual and written cues would have made it visually accessible, and today serve as a crucial resource for understanding teaching practices in this period.